And welcome to Politics 101. It's a Friday night, and Dr. Vincent Adams is here with us. We're going to continue covering the issues that we've been covering all week. That development there with Rickford Burke seems to have been seems to have taken on some new legs. Just read a report there in Demerara Waves where the crime chief, Mr. Blanham, and the Attorney General are declining to comment on whether they sought the permission of the police in the United States and New York to serve a warrant on Rickford Burke. No comment. When Nandalal says no comment, welcome to Politics 101. Welcome to Politics 101. Thanks if you're joining us from Guyana. A very good evening to you. Very good evening to the people in Essequibo Coast, Essequibo Islands. Those of you in Region 7, Region 8 to Region 9, even parts of Region 10. Welcome to Politics 101. And of course, all of you are joining us from all the regions in Guyana. A special good evening to the people on the quarantine. The people on the quarantine, welcome to Politics 101. I know we have lots of loyal listeners and viewers in that part of the country. A special welcome to you. And we don't always remember the people of New Amsterdam, and the people down the river, down the Berbice River, on both sides of the river, on the east side and the west side of the Berbice River. Of course, we have people in Ithaca. Brother from Ithaca contacted me recently and says that he's a very loyal viewer of the program, and I don't ever mention Ithaca when I'm talking about Kwekwe. And what a shame, because I had some lovely times in Ithaca dancing Kwekwe. There's a Kwekwe place, and I want to apologize profusely for not mentioning Ithaca. Really had some lovely times there. And I also got some contact from people in Sanford, down the river, on the other side. Sanford, that is a rare African place. Askria, back in the day, had what was called a drum festival in Sanford. A drum festival. Some of the best drummers from all over the country gathered in Sanford. So my apologies for forgetting the people down the river there, the Berbice River, and down Kanji River. Kanji River, of course, a special one of the theme songs of any African walk, meaning come true, whatever you all call it. Kanji water go swallow me, mama. Kanji water go swallow me, mama. Kanji water go swallow me, mama. That's a theme song for any African walk, because the Kanji River, as you all know from history, has a particular significance. Of course, we know the 1763 revolution down the Kanji River, down the Berbice River, very important part of Guyana. And I want to apologize so much for not talking a lot. This is what happens when you begin to explore some of these issues. And I'm glad you all appreciated the Kwekwe and Africanist songs that we featured last night, and our little conversation around it. And it is a thing that, one of the reasons that I get up every day and say, you know, I've got to come on and do Politics 101, because so much of knowledge resides among our people, and you don't know until you go there. Good evening to you, Mr. Jeffrey, from Mocha. Well, we talk a lot about Mocha. We talk a lot about the politics of Mocha, and not always about the culture of Mocha. I remember as a little boy, we used to have excursions from Buxton to Mocha. I mean, you're going into Mocha, on both sides of the road, they used to plant pine. The first time as a little boy I see my life, pine on both sides. You didn't have all them house and thing there. You know, when you left the East Bank Road and you're going in, it used to be farmlands on both sides. And they used to plant a lot of pine. That was my first memory of Mocha, because, you know, my auntie was an excursion lady and she used to take me along to the excursion, and going into Mocha, and the people in Mocha, every woman, you're going there for the excursion, every one of them ladies used to get a hair tie in the African thing. And those were my early childhood memories of going to Mocha. And then later on, going into Mocha to dance Kwekwe was always a joy. So if I forget particular places, if I don't mention particular places, it is not that I'm dissing those places. Sometimes the memory don't work on all cylinders as you speak. But again, my apologies to the people down the Berbice River, down the Kanji River. Well, in those days we call it Kanji Creek. Kanji Creek. You know, we know about Kanji Creek and Mahaika Creek and Abari Creek and Maikoni Creek, because we river them is Rail River. And then I remember the first time going to the islands, Jamaica, and they get some little trench and they're calling them river. I was amazed. They're calling them little trench. I said, where the river there? They said, there. I said, that's a little train. That's a little train. And you know, Mahaika and Maikoni and Abari, we didn't know them as rivers, they were creeks. You pass Abari Creek, you pass Maikoni Creek, Mahaika Creek, and Kanji, you never used to call Kanji River Kanji Creek. It's really amazing how these, I guess the young people now call them river, right? But I wanted to pass out. When I went to Jamaica, they tell me, look, the river, the David. What river? A little drain. Oh, my Lord. Welcome to Politics 101. All those of you who are joining us from inside Guyana, outside of Guyana, in the wider Caribbean, welcome. You all know that I promote the Caribbean on this program because we are part of the Caribbean. We were Caribbean before we became Guyana, because the plantation owners saw all the islands and mainland countries as one. They're part of the British, so-called British West Indies, and they saw us as one. So we were Caribbean before we became Guyana. Remember, we became Guyana in 1966. Before that, we were part of the Caribbean. And you know, we talk about, you know, the Caribbean countries, some of the governments treated our people badly, which is true. But in the early days in the early days, the islanders, they used to come to Guyana. And we used to allow them, of course, over the colonial times, so we didn't have too much say over whether they come or not. But we used to talk bad about them. We used to call them islanders and Palawala. Those of you from Linden will know about them, Palawala. I think they're Vincentians and St. Lucians. So sometimes I know we Guyanese get a little touchy how they treat us, but we used to call them Palawala. And islanders was a nice name, Palawala was it. And they used to come from Suriname, and we used to call them all kind of name, Dutchy, Joka, all kind of name, all kind of name. So we have our intra-Caribbean dynamics, but at the end of the day, we're family. We're family. You can't go to Madia and the black people in Madia. Talk to them. They 9 out of 10 of them from St. Lucia. A lot of the St. Lucia men came and they settled in Madia. And they came without wives, of course. They got married and their children born Guyanese. A lot of them are now going back to St. Lucia and finding their family, because a lot of the men came and never went back there. And now their children and grandchildren are going back to St. Lucia. But Madia is a St. Lucia place. It's a Lucian place. Linden, Vincentian, St. Lucians, so a little Grenadian, and so on. I mean, and you could know, because in the yard, the islanders, the yarders we call them, always get a breadfruit tree. In fact, we had some in Boston, big breadfruit tree, and the family to this day, the name is Breadfruit, right? Breadfruit. And you had Mr. Azzy, brave boy. He was from Grenada. And Yori, he never see a Yori pass. We name him Septic Yori. Yori does the wrong septic. So the islander dynamics, our Caribbean. And that is why I am so pro-Caribbean. And despite the fact that Rav Gonzalez and Mia Motley and them are, making themselves the fool, don't mistake our Caribbean solidarity for them. They are hustlers, they're political hustlers, but a lot of our people, Guyanese, are in Barbados, they're living well, they're doing good, they have their children there, who are part Bajan, part Guyanese. A lot of our people are in Antigua. They're living well, they're doing well. So we don't batak Barbados and batak Antigua and batak Grenada. We batak them who behaving bad. Ralph and Mia, who want to make Guyana hustle. And I understand the vex with me in the WPA, because we come out of that pro-Caribbean thing. And we are probably the best people to stick it to them, because they're our brothers and comrades. But God, I still respect Ralph Gonzalez. And I keep saying that over and over again. You don't lose respect for somebody because they make a mistake or two. Ralph is a tremendous intellect. He's the person that coined the term in recent times, the Caribbean civilization. And really the last of the old revolutionaries. But you're rotten. You're rotten. As we would say in Guyana, he got rotten. Put him out too much in things that you're not supposed to put him out in, and get himself caught up. Get himself caught up too much in certain things. And these days he can't separate principle from political hustling. And that's our problem with Brother Ralph. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. I'm glad that you all have come out. I know tonight is Friday night. Practically this is Christmas Eve, because it's the last weekday. But you know the thing go. They're gonna shop tomorrow. They're going to open tomorrow for shop. They're going to open Sunday to shop. And so, although Sunday is the official Christmas Eve day, really in terms of midweek, this is the last, because I hear people are out and about in Georgetown and New Amsterdam and other towns because, you know what, people, sometimes you go to town, the money enrolling, but you window shopping. You window shopping. Window shopping. Love you all so much and glad that you all still find time to come out. And Lewiganga. Again, special good night to the people of New Amsterdam. You all pronounce it for me, Viren. All right, I ain't trying anymore, but you all know what part I'm going to call. The orphan part. Used to spend a lot of time there in that part of New Amsterdam. And nice town. Nice town. New Amsterdam is a place, when you get there, then you see you go in a Chinese restaurant in New Amsterdam, food sotil, all top food. You used to like when you get to New Amsterdam. Me and the WPA comrades, we used to go there and think you go there, you buy 2 Chinese food, man, for everybody. Chinese food, enough sotil. Nice. It's New Amsterdam is a cross between a town and a village. Because really it's a village, you know. It has a town. It's a village. It's a village. And the people down the rivers. Welcome to Politics 101. I said as we come on air tonight, the Rickford Burke issue is not going away. Because it looks as though they go into the people country and serve the warrant illegally. So when the media ask Mr. Loquacious Nandalal today, did you illegally serve a warrant on the man? No comment. It is a matter for the DPP and the police. That you didn't say so. That you rattle off yesterday. Rattle off. When they ask Blanham, no. When they ask about whether Rickford mails were, they went through the man mails, whether they had gone, he said that is a matter for the court. He didn't deny and say it didn't happen. I think they're in trouble. As they always, that's what how dictators operate. That's what happens to them. Dictators act like dictators. And as I said last night, they get catch. And they get catch because we're in a new time. Welcome to Politics 101. Let me bring in my brother.
Hey, my good brother, Dr. Hines, how are you doing? I just want to say welcome to our listeners, our great listeners out there, in of course in Guyana and the Caribbean and in our country that we live in right now in the United States and England and every place else that people are listening, and just want to wish them a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and a great holiday season for they and their family.
And of course, you just got back from Guyana. It was a sad moment because you lost a family member in that crash, and we're going to talk about that for a minute. But you remember when in Linden there you also called them Island of Palawala?
You forget I grew up in Christianborg, and in Christianborg, right in my street, a bunch of them are little kids. We all grew up together as great buddies, and we still great buddies, And when we get mad with each other, I would call them Palawalo and say, "Why y'all don't go back to where you come from?" Here, and we even had a couple of Bajans in that street, and we used to call them Ta. I don't know what the Ta meant, but we used to call Bajans Ta. T-A.
I never heard that one.
Yes, we used to call them Ta. But yeah, we had a lot of the Islanders was when we gonna be kind, but then the Palawala part of it, but we all were brothers and sisters and grew up playing with each other in that same street, and we still remain like brothers and sisters. But yeah, they're really good people. I mean, they are. And you're right. You remember these things as if it was yesterday. Their yard used to be full, of breadfruit trees. And the other part, here, the other part, Dr. Hyde, is not only breadfruit trees, but dasheen. You remember they used to,
Dasheen.
dasheen was their staple diet, and I fell in love with dasheen even up to today. If I could get dasheen anytime, I could
Yeah.
feed on dasheen at all times.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
My auntie was a fruit seller. You know, she would take fruits up from the coast and go up to Linden and sell. And so she lived there during the week and would go home at weekend. And her boyfriend was a Vincentian, a man named Ivan Lohman, big tall. And he could swim. He used to swim across the Demerara River and Ashin and so on. And you know, and they had a lady from Boxer named Zeta. She used to people used to stay by her where they call it border and so on.
yeah.
And that was my aunt's stepsister. So as a little boy, she would tag me along. And we used to live in what was called in those days Valley of Tears.
Yes, Valley of Tears. That's exactly correct. But you know the one thing that we didn't like that when they cut into the language into the patois and they start cussing we and we don't even know.
Know what they're saying. Yeah. Yes. It's good to recap those history, Doc, because the young people today, I mean, they have to deal with the world that they are in, and they're not aware. And in a sense, in many cases, we take turns. You know, we had time when we go to their country, but they used to come here. Used to come to we country looking for gold and so on in the intra-Caribbean dynamics. Doc, you went to Guyana, sad occasion. Officer Charles, your cousin, was one of the persons that perished in that crash, and he was a master pilot. Our paths crossed a couple of times, and many people, quite apart from the fact that he was a master pilot, almost everybody said he was a fantastic human being. Talk to us a little bit about him and about what it meant for him to have died in such circumstances, and from a family standpoint.
He was a special person. I'm not exaggerating, Doc, when I say that nobody could find a better human being than this. I call him a kid because he looks like a kid, but it's just his disposition in life and the way he carries himself. Nothing bothered him. He always looked out for everyone except himself. Everything was could be conquered as far as he was concerned. You took a problem to him and you would swear that the hell, this guy is, it doesn't matter how hard it is. He was going to give you some comfort that it will be solved. And, just to give you an example, the very day before the accident, there was right in that same area, there was a helicopter crash 50 years ago. And the day before that was the 50th anniversary. Now, Michael doesn't know these folks. He knows about the incident. What Michael did, Michael went out on his own with the government helicopter. He bought flowers on his own and threw the flowers on the site to memorialize that incident. And then he took a video of when he was letting down the flowers and stuff, and then sent it to the relatives of the two people who died. I mean, he didn't ask for any publicity or anything. It was the guy, one of the relatives of the person who died. They were the one who put it on Facebook. So that was a kind of special person. The other thing is, he's the only person in Guyana right now who has taken video of the every square inch of Guyana. The only person. And he didn't do it because, people just like a photograph or a video for the beauty of it that most of us look like. He did it because of his love for country and for nature. And a lot of people see him flying, but he was also a great hunter. He would spend weeks or days in the bush with his Amerindian brothers. He could shoot us. He could spear fish and animals as well as Amerindians. Many days at his house, he would bring Amerindians to spend time with him at Suzdijk. And as a matter of fact, I had to finally disclose that he was my secret weapon when I was heading of the EPA, because in the interior where they were mining, and a lot of them, they were just destroying the land and the rivers, just destroying them. But we never had access to it because it was so far in, etc. So he was providing the videos for me, not because he wanted to tell in the miners, but because he didn't like how they were destroying the rivers in the country. But so he was providing that, and they couldn't figure out how we were getting the information, because we were now implementing rules and taking actions against them. So he was, he those are the kinds of things. He looks out for his country, and there's no more honorable way to die than for your country. In addition to that, finally, he was retired. He was a retired military officer and decided to go back because they needed him, because of his expert, his pilot. He was he's been there the longest as a pilot, and they didn't have pilots. He decided to go back. He was happily, married and everything, had a great family, but he decided to go back years ago. And he, believe it or not, he was the person who flew the president and the vice president. They never, he was their special pilot. So, I mean,
he was their special pilot. Yeah.
Yeah. He, of course, I don't know. They didn't know that he was my cousin before.
Your cousin, yes, right.
But just to show you how it's a small world, that we look at each other and pigeonhole each other as to, this is a bad person, or because you're associated with another person, you're a bad person. Michael was always my first cousin, and that I'm not in the same side for the most part with the government, and that was never an issue. He and I loved each other. He doesn't get into politics either, by the way. He just likes to see what is right. That was the kind of person he is. That's a special person.
And there is something, and I want you to talk to this issue here. There's something about that generation that drove them into the military. A kind of commitment that went beyond just patriotism. Patriotism is a word that we throw around. But I think for those guys who are more than patriot, it's a commitment to a country, to a civilization, to a people that drove them, that seems to be waning in our country now. It's your cousin, and he would have joined the army at a particular time. Speak to that thing that would send someone into the army in a place like Guyana. Yeah.
Well, as you recall, even when the military was set up, it was our ambition to go into the military because it was respected, it was recognized when it was set up as something. It's not only as a good patriot, but it was a profession that everybody looked up to. For you being a soldier or a military officer, when I started at the University of Guyana, that was my ambition, to go into the military. And I used to look up to the people like the McPhersons and even the Norman McLean, and they look like the biggest things in life. And it so happened that I had access because I was a national cricketer at the time. So these guys, I had access. So that was my ambition. But we looked up to them. The military was well taken care of, well respected. But all of that now, it's they're just treated as if, you know, they're not really as important as they really are. I mean, the military has really gotten, you know, degraded in terms of status and stature. And so that was what the difference is to look forward to something that, you know, that is the pinnacle of anybody's profession. And that's what's missing. And you know, we've got to get that back now. I don't know, somehow, you know, we're gonna have to get that back, especially with the threats that we're getting from Venezuela, because this threat it will never go away, by the way. It will never go away. And you remember in those days, being a patriot and serving your country was preeminent in your life. It was part of your culture. Remember national service, for example. National service. Everybody had to do national service. Even when you get a scholarship, you got to do national service before you get the scholarship. Even all of the big executives and ministers and everybody, directors, heads of agencies, they had to go and serve national service to live with families on the highways and in the interior, to relate to those type of people. But nowadays, as soon as you get into government, into those positions, you know, you're separated from the regular person, so you cannot relate to them. And that is why we have 50% of our people right now who are living on what, $4 or $5 per day. And it just, if we don't care, with all the money that we're getting, it's still going to the upper echelons, the family and friends, because we do not have that connection. We don't care a damn about the people, the real people of the country. In the old days of national service, and we recognize that, we could relate to that. It was part of our culture, part of our nature, part of that feeling that you're talking about, Dr. Hines.
Yeah, and Doc, you know, not all of us who look a certain way supported the PNC. And I rather suspect that you fall into that category. But we were able to balance between our critique of the PNC as a government and our appreciation of some of the institutions that they created, you know, so that our problem with the armed forces was not as the armed forces, but was how they were being used, sometimes the police and so on, and those things used in a political way. But I think we did a good job, those of us who weren't supporters of the PNC, of being critical of the PNC, but respectful of some of the institutions that were created under the PNC. And even when we were critical of the institutions, we were very careful not to criticize the institutions as institutions, but in which they were used. But I think some people took that criticism and critique a little bit further, that they poison part of the population against institutions like the army, against institutions like the police, against institutions like the National Service. In a sense, they were ethnicized. They ethnicized those institutions to the point where today it's coming back to really haunt us, because those institutions, the institution of the army, is now in focus because we are being attacked by a neighbor, a bully of a neighbor. And the question of the armed forces now comes into play. And we find that half of the population have a certain kind of response to the armed forces that is not driven by a commitment to nationalism and thing. It's driven ethnically. And so we find the armed forces imbalanced ethnically, which is not a good thing, because if an ethnic group decided we're not fighting for Guyana, then we have no army. We find we have an army that is not well equipped, because the government of the last 30 odd years has not spent the kind of resources in renewing the armory of the army because of a fear that you might be arming your enemies and so forth. And it's all now come back to bite us. You care to comment on anything that I said there?
No, I absolutely agree with you. And that's one of the dangers in Guyana's, and you, of course, go way back with the WPA. And I had a bunch of, when I was going to UG, a lot of the WPA guys were my good buddies. Yeah, and you know the names there. But, and, they were not really aligned to any of the two big parties. So you had that kind of a middle. Middle ground there that was being carved out by intellectuals such as people like yourself or the people that came before you. Now, but it's a shame. It's a shame that everything in Guyana that were good, that were good and are good, always turns into being a political matter. It's political divisions. It always has to be divided along political lines, and that's what happened there. The army started, and of course, you had, it started as a great institution, but then you were absolutely correct. The PPP came into office, and of course, almost the entire army has nothing to do with the people who decided to join up in the army. By the way, they didn't look at and say, well, okay, I'm joining because I'm a black man. It so happened that we grew up with certain values and certain cultures and certain biases that they weren't attracting Indians into the military or into the police force. So it had nothing to do at the time with race. They made the decision. They were not prevented. And then so the PPP came into office, and of course they appeared to have taken the position that, hell, we, like you said, kind of worried that somehow if we continue to strengthen this force somehow because of all these black folks, we might be at risk here, that we might be overthrown in a coup or something. But so we got to start getting more matured. Our politicians, we've got to start getting more matured, where we can look at things for for the value of the country and doing what is right for the country. But obviously we're not seeing it, definitely not from this government. And this is the opportune time now that we've got the resources, we could afford it. You would think that we would sit back and look at what is best or take the right advice. But rather than that, we're focusing on Rickford Burke, because of this personal vendetta an obsession we've got with this one man, instead of looking at what's important for the country. But this personal vendetta, to spitefulness and vindictiveness, and then and every turn you make, you're losing. Okay, and then you're getting bruised, and you just can't walk away as a mature leader would do, and not get get down to that level. So that's what we're facing right now, and that's the seriousness. When we talk about the military and other institutions, the EPA is another example.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the seriousness that we're facing with these major institutions, and that is keeping back the country.
Keeping back the country. Dr. Vincent Adams here, and Vincent touched on the Rickford Burke issue, and we're going to get into that because it's telling us a lot about the mindset of our government, and it doesn't read well. I want to welcome all of you all to the program, and I want to thank you all for your support for our program throughout the years, and throughout the year. And there are a couple of people I need to thank for making contributions. Of course, it's our year-end fund drive. And I want to thank Samuel. I want to thank Walter. I want to thank Gregory. I want to thank Kenrick. These are people who I forgot to thank yesterday. I also want to thank some others who have made their contribution. Let me try to pull it up here. I want to thank Darcy. Darcy, I love you so much. You know, she's a loyalist. She's a loyalist. Monique, I want to thank you. I want to thank my brother Yuri, and Yuri, and you know, when someone goes by that name, their parents had to have something to do with the Soviets. Yuri Andropov was one of the Soviet leaders. Yuri Westmus. Yuri comes from the famous Westmus family. Rory Westmus, his uncle, was one of the leaders of the independence movement in the PPP, the early PPP. I like to make that distinction. The early PPP of the Jagans and the Burnhams and the Sidney Kings and Martin Carter and Rory Westmus and so on. And Yuri's father was a personal assistant to Dr. Jagan. Yuri's brother, Nigel Westmus, Dr. Nigel Westmus, of course, is more known for the being in the WPN. It must have been uncomfortable, as Yuri once told me, because his father was personal assistant to Dr. Jagan PPP. Nigel was in the WPA, and often his mother to referee the political discussions in the home. Yuri, thank you so much, and I want to thank who's this? Masai. Masai, I want to thank you so much. Alvin, I want to thank you so much. And all the others who have contributed to our fund drive, I want to thank you all. And those of you who are yet to make your contributions, please do so. It's our year in life, and as you know, we want to keep these programming on because we continue to make a difference. And in our case, a big part of our commitment is to keep the program on broadcast TV on Channel 9, where the older people who don't have access, the program is rebroadcast every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And whenever I go through the country, the elderly people will tell me, Dr. Hines, please, thank you very much. We look forward every Saturday and Sunday. We're not good with the phone and the internet. So we want to keep that commitment to our people. So your contributions are going to a worthy cause, and there are, other incidentals that we have. But thank those of you who throughout the year have been making your contributions, and those of you who make your contribution to our fund drive. As you all say, it's on the screen there, the bottom of the screen, Cash App, PayPal, Zelle, etc. Thank you all so much in advance. Dr. Adams, you went straight to the Rickford Burke issue. Here is Rickford Burke, an activist in the United States of America, and he's doing what all activists do. But from the president to the vice president to all, there seemed to be a fixation with Rickford. And they've now gone one step forward of sending a senior officer in the police force into the United States to serve Rickford with a warrant for some charges that they have leveled against Rickford Burke. First, what does this tell us about the quality of our government? I'm thinking a term that you know well, and all of us Guyanese know well: stoop so low. Tell us.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that in a long time, but that would be an apt description of it. It puzzles the mind that leaders, when you're a leader, you're supposed to behave at a certain level, Dr. Hines. You're a leader of not only some little cake shop or You're a leader of a country, especially a country now that is highly visible, that the rest of the world is watching. And here you are, the only thing that you talk about at every single press conference is Rickford Bork. And you go into the gutters, you abuse them and cuss them and call him names. And that's the, I mean, so that's the level as to where our leadership is stooping. This obsession with this man. And, but remember in a press conference a couple of weeks, a few weeks ago, the vice president himself said that he is a very vindictive person. And now, so he's doing
Mm-hmm.
this thing as vindictiveness to get back at Rickford because of that Washington conference and because, of course, of the fact-finding missions. So that is what. So now he wants to use Rickford Bork. No, I'm not a lawyer or anything. As to what was their legal standing to do what they did to come into another country, but just based on what my understanding of it, Rickford never even committed the crime in Guyana. Rickford had not been in Guyana for 25 years. But here now
Yeah.
you're sending people across borders to another country without notifying the authorities in that country, and they'll have to leave that to the legal people to see what's the process for that, or even if it's even possible for you to do it, or even it's legal. But here it is. Rickford Bork, these are trumped up charges, by the way. So let's get that out to the way. So there's no question about that. But here I was reading, by the way, I was reading about other people who've committed murders in Guyana and has escaped and gone to Suriname. But you don't hear anything about them following these folks. But this here is all. Here's another thing we got to remember, Dr. Hyde. This here is Putinesque to the T. Okay? And remember where this man, the leader of Guyana, and I view him as a leader. I mean, everybody knows that. This is where this man was trained, and he cannot get it out of his system. Regardless, he's just trying to accommodate the West. Really, this here it's a Russian playbook to go after people in other countries, and even look and to stifle freedom of speech. Look, and not to divert. Look at even with the Maduro's thing, Nandalal comes out with a statement saying, lambasting the people like myself and you who have anything to do with criticizing the government, and saying that Maduro is using those criticism that is in the public domain to use as evidence against in his case, which is absolute foolishness and nonsense. Because I challenge him to point out anything that any one of us have said that Maduro could have used in his case as an argument. It doesn't jive, but they're using it to intimidate and to stifle freedom of speech and any criticism. That is a dictatorship. That is Putinesque. And these are the same people when Judge Kissoon made the decision against Exxon for its own people, for our people to have full liability coverage to cover a spill. They went against it. They went against their own country and criticized the judge. So they're not even following the rule of law. If I'm Maduro and I'm looking for evidence to put against a country where a country is weak, the first thing I would look for is, even if the leaders are not following the rule of law in that country it doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. It's a weak country. So that's what Maduro would be using as evidence, not me and you talking about Exxon and oil. As a matter of fact, Maduro knows about Exxon and Chevron and oil production. And Maduro is getting much more out of those companies that we're getting, and that's what we're criticizing. So Maduro, we're basically even doing less than what Maduro is imposing and demanding from those companies. So it is all foolishness. Maduro going to criticize us for demanding less than what he is getting from his oil companies. That's stupidity. However, I'm sure he's looking at these leaders who are not even following their own rule of law. That is what weakens the country, not us. So whether you hear this foolishness, they don't even think as to what they're doing, or they believe that people are stupid. Remember
yes,
that remember that this guy, Jagdio, recently was asked a simple question in one of the press conferences. What is the position within your manifesto of taking out communism out of your manifesto? In this day of age, where he's pretending to be a friend of the West, he could not even answer the question. He said, well, the committee got to make a decision. And if you listen to Kemraj Ramjatan, you probably need to get Kemraj on the show. They kicked out Kemraj out of the party because Kemraj advocated for communism to be removed out of their manifesto. So we see where this is going. That's their ideology, and that's their belief, is to make Guyana an authoritarian state. And so this whole Rickford Bork thing, it's beyond just Rickford Bork, if you ask me.
Yes, you're quite right. You're quite right, and you've raised a very serious point there, because we have had governments, this very country, the United States, during the Second World War, cracked down on German descended Americans for supporting, ostensibly for supporting Germany during the First World War, and there are some landmark cases in the United States around that. We had the case with Truman during the it was Eisenhower during the Korean War, took over private companies and forced them to produce weaponry.
Japanese internship, Japanese. You remember the camps?
Yes.
For Japanese. So
you're exactly
correct.
Yes, so we've had precedents in the world where people have used war as a means of cracking down on people. And we also remember another point of history where the Soviet Union went after Trotsky, one of the two major leaders after Lenin. It was Trotsky and Stalin, and Trotsky was banished from the Soviet Union and eventually moved from place to place. He ended up in Mexico. And the Soviets sent their agents there in Mexico to murder him. Yeah. So when we see this government sending people overseas after Rickford Bork, it's not 3 cents. It's a very serious issue, and I want this audience and others who are not on to that these things have been done in the world before, and do not take it lightly. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Desiree Hunter, Carol Fortune, Margot George, Sister Brenda Rowe, Auntie Brenda. Was so nice of you to call me for my birthday. Auntie Brenda don't make joke at all. He made sure, as soon as they come in, they had a little get together, my friends and them, on my birthday. And as soon as they're meeting, they said, well, Brenda want to talk to you. And they make sure they put her. Auntie Brenda, I know Christmas in this year, but I'm coming soon. Good evening to all of you, all the bookers. Desiree, good evening, Michael, good evening, and welcome to Politics 101. While you were gone, Doc, we had what I call the misadventure in St. Vincent. And we had a document that came out of that called the Argyle Declaration. What are your thoughts on that whole process And then the Argyle Declaration came out.
Well, let me start out by saying, which is what I've been advising a lot of my political friends. To start with, there was I was totally convinced Maduro never had any intentions of firing a single bullet or attacking us military. And let me tell you why. Maduro is now being saved and bailed out because of the Ukraine war. You see, if you look at the big picture, because of that Ukraine war, remember what happened to Europe? All of that energy was shut down, and they were under threat of cold winters and everything. So now Biden had to go out there and find energy for Europe. He took on that responsibility. And where did he turn to? He turned to Venezuela and he said, here, I'm going to bail you out. Because remember, Venezuela was producing 3 million barrels of oil per day until the sanctions hit them. And then the companies left, and they're down to about 600,000 barrels per day, less than a third. So Biden went to them and said, here, I'm gonna send back in Chevron, and so that you can start getting some revenues, because oil was responsible for, I saw a number like 90% of their revenues. That's a lot of money. So if you're gonna slash that by 2/3 or more, you're really in serious trouble. So he willingly abide, Maduro willingly abide, and then one of the conditions was for him to have free and fair election by next year. So that's all part of the condition. So it was a 6 months, raising a sanction. So he's got to behave himself for more sanctions to be raised. Then, of course, Chevron went in. So there's no turning back there. Maduro knows that. But he got to keep, saber rattling and stuff for his people and for the election. Fast forward, the one thing that brought America in was when he started the threats now in terms of interfering with investments, interfering with Exxon, Chevron, saying that you guys got to leave within 3 months. He knows that's not going to happen again. But America now, because of that threat with all the investors, the new investors for Essequibo and everything, America was behind that conference that suddenly hurried up conference to stop this threat from him scaring away investors. Because America and England, they have already made deals to bring in their companies into Guyana, and no company is going to come in with that. So in order to calm the waters, they decided to hold this conference. So Ali didn't go, not to defend the guy, but he did not even make the decision on his own. He had to go there.
Yeah.
But here's where it showed his weakness, though, and I guess his ineptitude is, how could you be going to a meeting without a meeting even when you got your little club cricket meeting, you got a little agenda. He had no agenda. And then he calls the opposition leader and wants him to go. The opposition leader asked him a very pertinent question. What is going to be my role? And where's the agenda? So, and then Maduro beat him to the punch, because Maduro outslick him again. Maduro put the agenda into public domain that we're going to be talking about the borders. So now, again, he's on the defensive. But here's the key part with this whole Ralph involvement. There's something that is called PetroCarib. It was established in 2005. And I was one of those who, as a matter of fact, I remember I was in a conference in Puerto Rico talking about PetroCarib and trying to discourage the countries from joining PetroCarib, because what is happening is exactly what I predicted, for them not to. And this was in 2005. I even had a big press conference before the Caribbean Media Exchange, trying to tell them, you need to go back and talk about it to convince your governments not to join this thing. Because, first of all, and here's a misconception of people, PetroCarib is not a discounted price that you're getting for your oil. It's a deferred payment. What PetroCarib said from 2005. And the only thing that Chavez wanted was to take control of it was the geopolitics. I call it petropolitics, okay? Because remember, Venezuela was being isolated. And the only, he had to get his community, and he knew that things were bad with these countries in terms of paying for energy. So he went out and he said, okay, I'm going to give you, here's what people think it's a discount. It's not a discount. What it says is that you pay upfront 60% of the price of the oil that you're buying. However, the 40% is it's a loan at a lower interest rate, even though it's a loan, and we're giving you up to 25 years or so to pay it back. So here you are piling up every time you purchase. This thing is piling up. They give you 25 years, but because you keep compounding it, you may never be able to pay out the darn thing. Well, of course, after he couldn't produce any more oil, that fell to pieces. And so there were no petrocarb. As a matter of fact, you remember one time Guyana was in a lurch to pay petrocarb, what we owe, pay Venezuela, and we were paying them back in rice. You remember that? I think it's 20.
Yes.
And a lot of countries fell into that. So what happened? Petrocarb went, it kind of fizzled out, and then it came back in 2019. I think he decided to start back this whole, and then Mia Motley, strange enough, Barbados is not a member of Petrocarb. St. Vincent was one of they were at the forefront from day one. And what happened after it fizzled out and it stopped, they decided to start it back again. And now Mia Motley was one of the biggest advocates to start it back again. Mia Motley and Ralph. Ralph is the first one that joined back Petrocarb. He had his first shipment of oil last year, September, I think. So that is why. And then on top of that, Chavez decided Maduro decided to reward him by forgiving all of the money that he owed in the past. So this guy is acting on the behest of Maduro. And here's why he cannot do without it. Over 95% of all of St. Vincent's energy use is oil. So it's not a case where they've got other things to go to, like solar or wind, like the other countries are helping to put together. So he's totally dependent. So this whole thing about him getting involved and appearing, that the guy, first of all, he's not neutral, and he's just going through the motion, and to maintain his friendship with his good buddy Maduro. And I have said, Dr. Hines, and here's why this thing was just a farce in terms of just trying to control the region. I said in 2005, when I was arguing against it, I said, if Chavez was really genuine, that 60%, that 40% that he's lending us, give it to the countries to go into renewable energy, to develop renewable energy, rather, because you're giving it in the arrangement was that you will be dependent upon Venezuela forever, because they're making sure that you're not going to go look at renewables. You're going to have to buy their oil and by the way, as part of that arrangement, they were going to be coming in to put into the infrastructure, the gas stations and everything. They're going to have the ships delivering the oil to your country. So they're going to be controlling from start to finish of all this. So I feel sorry for Ali, because all he's doing is he's dancing to the music. But they're not even thinking and just going through the motion. At least let it appear as if you're the leader of the country and you've got some kind of a skills, and not appear to have Maduro just making you look kind of silly sometimes, because it's just if you're not thinking and allowing Maduro to have his way and getting the upper hand all the time.
Dr. Vincent Adams here, going through the Petro-Caribbean, and I'm very glad that you did that, so that people know what the Petro-Caribbean thing is about, and laying it out for us. We have come to the end of our time. Your closing thoughts.
Well, again, best wishes to all. But I can't leave here without touching on something. I listened to the vice president press conference yesterday, and the vice
Mhm.
president, and that's the thing I don't understand this guy. Instead of cutting your losses and leave, he tries again to defend the 6.5% teachers raise, and then he
Mhm.
says,
The
listen to
public
this one.
servant thing.
Guess what this man says? This man says that this is less than the inflation of the country.
Lord.
That's what he says with a straight face, that this is much less than the inflation of the country. So 6.5 is okay. Here's the other thing that he said, and I've mentioned it, is again, it's just like if he's obsessed with this term. You remember I mentioned it several times ago that in one press conference he said 2 times that all the opposition wants to do is feed the people. He said that again
Yes.
yesterday. You know what he said yesterday? We can't spend all of the money with feeding people. That's what he said yesterday again. Just to give he hates feeding people. But the other things that he's doing, where the money is being spent, is just fine. Is fine with him. Yeah, he said that yesterday. We can't spend everything on food. I mean, what's more basic to folks, than making sure that your population, has food to eat. That is why we are ranked. We have the highest rate of malnutrition for our kids in this whole region, the Caribbean and Latin America region. We've got twice a higher rate than Haiti, of all places, 5 times the malnutrition rate as the entire region put together. Instead of and not, now you're talking about, not, we can't spend all the money on food. Hell, nobody never said that we wanted all the money to be spent on food, but at least spend a little bit. When you look at a slice of pumpkin for what, $1,000, a pound of tomatoes
Mhm.
for 1,200, a couple of little bit more. These are basic things, and then you got the North to come there and say we can't spend all the money on food. But you're giving out a $1 billion contract to somebody who probably can't even spell contract or construction. You know, but so that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with, Dr. Hines.
That's what we're dealing with, Dr. Vincent Adams. Thank you so much we missed you for the last 2 weeks, but you came back tonight, and thank you very much. All the best to you and your family for the holidays, and we are going to be on next week. We are going to be on next week, Friday. We are
Okay.
taking Christmas Day off and Boxing Day off, and then we'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then take the New Year's off and so on. So give our viewers some time to enjoy the holidays. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thanks. Same here, Dr. Hines, to you and your family and everybody else. Have a Merry Christmas and have a nice season. Enjoy it.
Thanks. Dr. Vincent Adams there, and I want to thank all of you for staying on the journey with us. Wishing you all the best for the season. As I said, we are going to be off on Christmas Day, Monday, and on Boxing Day, Tuesday, we are going to be off. We'll be back next week, Wednesday. Please do take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful Christmas, and we know it's a long weekend starting tomorrow, Sunday, then Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then we come back for a breather for 2 or 3 days, and then we go into the old year's, New Year's weekend. It's that time of year. Stretch out a little bit, relax with family. I will be spending Christmas with my family. I haven't spent time with my Christmas out of Guyana for years, donkey years, going back, 20 odd years. I've always gone back every Christmas. I may have missed, during the pandemic, I think I missed one Christmas. But starting 26 years ago, once I was finished studying, I would make sure that I go back home Christmas every year. This year, I'm spending it with my siblings. You know, you're moving up, and the family putting pressure on you and say, you know, you got to spend time. And so I'm missing Guyana this Christmas. I'm missing Guyana this Christmas, but my heart is there. Again, thank all of you who contributed to our program. And I want to urge the rest of you, we are keeping the fund open throughout the season. And whenever you all have the time to make your contribution to Politics 101, to help us keep our program together. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. You know, drink up something, sorrel, ginger beer. Sorrel is a man, and ginger is a big man, you know. So even them things, basic Christmas things, really fetching serious price. But do celebrate the Christmas. Have a good time. And I'll see you all back next week. Remember, as always, love. And there's no other time of the year to show our love as much as this time of year. The birth of the Christ child, significant. And of course, it goes beyond Christ, Christianity, and it has become cultural across religious lines, across. And we're coming to the end of the year. What a year 2023 has been. But 2024 promises to be very much a challenge as 2023 was. So until next week, Wednesday, take care.